What is the truth in the stories we are told? We've been given a story of a world fueled by separation. We've become separate from one another, separate from the earth, ultimately separate from the true nature of ourselves. It's time we learn the truth. It's time you rewrite your story. It's time to realign with who it is that you really are. This is the fifth dimension.
You are infinite and eternal. We are infinite and eternal.
Our natural essence, we could say, is simply being.
We have this awakening coming together as a perfect storm.
We're ready for this. We have the capacity inside. We just got to find that.
And I want to welcome everybody into the Fifth Dimension podcast with me, Evan McDermott. I just got out of sacred plant ceremony that I did for myself, some Sarananga, sacred rapé. And, I was in deep reflection, deep meditation, especially sitting with the Sananga, for those of you who are unfamiliar with it. It's like a eye drop, and with it, it's very decalcifying the pineal gland, clearing mental blockages, but there's so much pain in it. So you have to really lean into it, go deep past the pain. And, I was really thinking about what is the solution? How can I feel this pain, this collective healing that needs to happen? How do we get there? That was really my intention, of remembering what is our natural state. How do we move forward here? And, I knew I needed to hop on here. I feel like I have some thoughts that I'd like to articulate. So I'm happy you're here. Thank you for tuning in. I'm off of my YouTube suspension. It's interesting. I did a episode a while back on Jeffrey Epstein, probably in February. It was kind of just uncovering the truth, the agenda, what was going on there, really just posing some questions. And it just recently got taken off of YouTube because I was supposedly cyberbullying. I don't know if I was cyberbullying Jeffrey Epstein or what, but back on YouTube, it's a pleasure to be back. Had a week-long suspension, a couple strikes now. So I think I only got 2 more, and then I'll be gone off that platform. I'll have to go full-time to BitChute. But we're still on YouTube for now, so we're just going to keep going. And that kind of plays into what I want to talk about a little bit too. These big tech platforms, I'll definitely hit on them. But, we're in an era, a time where we are experiencing this collective death and ultimately rebirth completely. I wrote a poem, it's funny, March 2020, but pretty much I think right when the pandemic was, quote unquote, pandemic was taking off, right? And it was 4 lines. It was like something along the lines of, I'm going to paraphrase, the Great Awakening. The old systems, something along the lines of old systems beginning to fall and entering into a new era, right? I wish I had the poem pulled up in front of me. Should have had that. Oh, well. But you get the point of it, and I'm actually going to attach the image that was inspired off of. I just found some graffiti art, and I wrote it right on the spot. This Great Awakening, and I mentioned death and rebirth. I'll put the poem in the episode description too. You guys can read it. But anyways, so, we are having these systems falling, and I myself, I'm sort of leaving the old way of being behind, you could say. I'm not attaching to the Evan McDermott. I do this, and that. No, I'm a higher frequency being. You can't put it into words what that actually means, right? Once you try and speak of it, you lose it. There's this natural way of the world that we are returning to. Because, this has been prophesized through many, many indigenous cultures, the biblical stories. We are entering the collective awakening, the Great Awakening. The systems are falling so we can plant the seeds of the new earth. That is our job right now. That is our mission right now. And how do we do that? It's speaking truth. It's asking the questions, who am I on a deeper level? How can I continue to evolve, grow, become more self-reliant? And ultimately, the solution is going to come in the manifestation of total decentralization, complete decentralization from these illusionary power structures that we have created, complete detachment from the old way of being and ushering in an entirely new paradigm. The old normal wasn't working so much. As much as we like to fantasize about it, and, certainly compared to the restrictions and the things that are happening today, I can understand it. I get it. There was a comfort that was within that. But we're collectively already digging our own grave within that time period. That's why all of this is manifesting. Because we put the energy of materialism, we put the energy of being manipulated, put the energy of allowing ourselves to play the victim perpetually. And here we are at the cataclysm, the great flood. We need to build our arcs. We need to become self-reliant, and we need to do it now. We need to do it now. The time is now. This is the time that has been prophesized, right? So total decentralization, what does that look like, right? That means we're not going to have the current government structure, the system that's in place. We're not going to have these big pharmaceutical drug cartels. What are they actually serving? I mean, a good example of medicine, I'm working with these sacred medicines, rapé, sananga. You can even say cannabis is a sacred medicine when used with intention. It's from the earth. And I myself haven't been in ayahuasca ceremonies yet. I've used mushrooms in a very sacred manner. But from my experiences with medicine, and as I'm sort of stepping into an almost medicine man role within my circle and, showing the sacredness behind many of these rituals that go back thousands and thousands of years, medicine is only as powerful as the intent behind it. I could use rapé. What am I going to get from it if I'm just using it to get a quick buzz? There's no spiritual development within that. Smoking in itself, I had the realization, is a spiritual practice. Why? Because we're using tobacco, a sacred plant, to calm ourselves, to put ourselves in a moment of peace. People talk about after having a cigarette, they feel like a new person. Why is that? Because it's a spiritual release. You're connecting with yourself through this unhealthy practice, right? But that's why it's so difficult to give up, because we need that void to be filled spiritually, and we find our different forms to do it. So that's just one example. But what are these big pharmaceutical companies doing? What is their intent? This, I'm not even going to say the word quack scene. How about that? That'll probably still pick up actually on the YouTube censor. Here we go. Third strike coming down the line. But what is the intent behind that? I mean, I certainly think I have the understanding of what the intent behind it is. I don't want to speak it into existence by any means, but it's not health. It's certainly not health. That I saw a report last week, or it was for the past week. More people died from reported on VAERS, I believe, in the United States than actual deaths from the supposed disease in 1 week. So tell me again how that's safe and effective. What is the intent behind these products they're putting out? Not health. We need to eliminate this power structure. It's as simple as that, because the intent is not built on medicine. We need true medicine, a reconnection with nature. That's our medicine. Okay. And total decentralization from currencies, total decentralization from pretty much any aspect of our life that we are outsourcing, right? I mean, another example of medicine could even be the food, right? I mean, large scale agricultural food production, spraying poison, GMO crops, all of this. That's not medicine. That's garbage. That's why do you think cancer cases have risen drastically over the past 50, 60 years? Right? We need to reclaim our food, decentralize it, have it grown within local communities, become self-sufficient, start growing your own, start growing with your community. It's really that simple, right? We don't need these large centralized power structures dictating all of it. People like Bill Gates buying up thousands and thousands, millions upon millions, actually, acres of farmland, becoming the biggest farmer in all of America. We can't have that. We just can't do that. We need to essentially rid ourselves of the dependency on places like Monsanto and or the companies like them, the corporations. They only succeed with our consent, right? And so, how do we get rid of them? How do we bring about the food revolution, I guess you could say? It's by becoming self-reliant. Okay, it's becoming connected with yourself within so you can become connected with the things around you, like your food. Everybody just assumes that they're going to be able to get their survival needs met. You know, I was listening to a podcast on Luminary, Russell Brand. He had a prepper on, a guy who spent a lot of time with the preppers, survival prep, all that. And he was saying that only 1% of the US population, for example, has enough food, water, like things, resources essentially to survive 30 days. 30 days. I was like, wow, I'm part of the 1%. Look at me. I mean, because I have an emergency food supply. I have extra water. Like I'm trying to grow my own food. It's a learning experience, not as easy as I thought it was going to be. But I'm taking the steps. I'm not perfect. I'm learning. I'm committed to the path. And we need to start forming communities based upon this, connecting with others so they can show you the way. We can't do this completely on our own, but you need to start somewhere. It was my decision to get emergency food, to get emergency water, to identify where clean drinking water is in my area if I can't go buy some, right? And I've taken those initiatives, those steps. So we need to start becoming more self-reliant. It's as simple as that. Small things like this add up. So, I mentioned big tech earlier, the censorship. That's a censorship of our, not just free speech. I think free speech doesn't cover it enough. It's a censorship of our divine expression. That is what free speech is. People don't realize how deep that goes. You can't censor spirit. Who the fuck do you think you are? You can't censor spirit. It will always prevail. That's the nature of consciousness. Like, how do you think you can actually control that? And it's by essentially connecting humans with the AI. That is the end goal. They want to create this artificial world, artificial reality. We're hooked on digital dependencies. We live in comfort. Think back to the episode I did where I read the "You Will Own Nothing and Be Happy." I read the World Economics Forum's article on the episode. They were saying you will just live comfortably. You don't need to do anything. Don't worry about it. You're going to live in the smart city. You're going to be on the smart grid. No. That is severing spirit, a complete artificial way of living. They're going to stimulate your God principle, your spiritual nature with these artificial dependencies, and eventually have it so you're not able to distinguish what is real, our true nature, Earth, from the artificial reality. That's why it's so important to continue to become less reliant on these big tech platforms, to disconnect the need to be on your phones, your dependencies. You could tell me you're done using the internet forever. Tomorrow, I'd be like, well, shit, that sucks, but I'll find a way. It's okay. Right? You have to lose your dependency on these things and create self-reliance. Now, the internet is a great tool. I'm broadcasting this podcast because of these technologies. We can integrate them spiritually, holistically, and use them to create a world of global interconnectivity. Like, that is the beauty of the internet. We have access to everyone right now, right? But we have outsourced all of our reality to it, our socialization, our finances, all of it, our jobs. Look at the work from home, right? The desecration of community in person and moving it to an online space, because there is so much missing when you are online. I mean, a perfect example is I've done a few in-person podcasts. Not many. Most of it is online, but I remember early on I had both of my brothers on, actually. They had their own episode. And I had my sister-in-law on, like, very early on, probably within the first 20 episodes. If you go back far enough, you'll find those. And I had one of a guy I knew out when I was living out in California on in person. And I've only done one or two since then. There was a few in the beginning, and just the nature of how things have shaped out. But I did the trifecta of light recently, which is in person. And I've always felt there was so much more meaning, so much more heartfelt connection with that in person. Like, we are there with each other in this moment. And not that there's a disconnect online. You can still very much tune into others' energies, but there's an element missing. And I think that's obvious. And maybe we don't want to admit it. I don't know what it is. I don't know why that's not more prevalent for people. And there's sort of a priority for people to come back together in person and establish community. You know, we have this almost dumbed down version of community that is meeting our baseline need for it barely, just barely. And so we don't seek more, when in reality there is a void that is still being created from that. But because we have community in our faces, we don't think that's what it fully is, right? So we need to detach ourselves and start living in presence. We need to start living in awareness to the real world. Like, take a breath right now and notice where the fuck you are. What are you doing? Seriously, I mean, I'm broadcasting obviously from an internet signal. That stuff is there, yes, but it's not the present moment. If you go into your screen, you are escaping the present moment. We need to return to presence. We need to be here, and we need to be here now. Thank you, Ram Dass. Now, in terms of what we do next, it's as simple as self-reliance. I'm telling you, it's as simple as self-reliance. And we are the divine creators of our reality. This is the time for you to reclaim your inner power. And the paradox of that is that it never actually left. You are only outsourcing it. You've had power this whole time. It's already within you. You already can do these things. You're meant to live untamed. You're not supposed to be some domesticated zoo animal. That's the equivalent of humans in an artificial environment, a zoo. You're not meant to be living that way. You can reclaim your true nature. You can reclaim who you are. And it's as simple as just doing it and saying, all right, I'm going to be me. And working through the conditions, working through the hard wirings that you have within your mind and looking past them. That's why it's so important to be present. That's why it's so important to meditate, to slow down the mind and just be. You know, my meditation, my breath work, activating my life force energy is my number one priority every day. How can I do that? How can I be in alignment so I can be who I need to be, not do what I need to do? How can I be who I need to be for myself, for my community, my relationships, everybody I know? How can I be who I need to be and deliver and be of service? You need to be present, because we are only going to see an increase, doubling down the death of these old systems. You know, when the tower comes crashing down, it's not gentle. It's not some controlled demolition. When we're talking nature's chaos, we're talking the prophesized chaos. the flood. This is not, it's not for the faint of heart, but you don't have a faint heart. You need to recognize your strength, your divinity, who you are in your fullest expression. Like, who could you be? Who could you be right now? Who can you return to? What ways are you stopping and censoring yourself? That's the biggest killer of free speech right there. It's self-censorship because we're so afraid of what others think of us. Just step into it. It's time. The time has always been now. That's why you're listening to this podcast. That's why you're still here. So you can step into who the fuck you're supposed to be. Because that is how we plant the seeds of the new earth, ladies and gentlemen. That is how we create this paradigm shift that we are meant to step into. What happens, for example, and I will say, I'm not a Christian. Death of Christ, right? Right now, we're sitting in the cave, waiting for the rebirth. The death is already here. The death is happening. We are in a collective dark night of the soul. This is the death moment. And we have to embrace that. We can't run from our fear of death anymore. No, I'm glad I faced it head on. I'm glad I was there for my dad and sat with him when he passed because it prepared me for this moment. I'm not afraid of death. I mean, you can take my death, or my life. You can give me death and fuck, I'm still free. I'm infinite and eternal, baby. What the fuck are you talking about? You can't take, like, you can take my life, but my spirit lives on. We're planting the seeds. Am I going to see the golden age new earth in my lifetime? Who the fuck knows? If I try and project yes, I'm just creating a story. I certainly intend to be, but I don't know what the future holds. And that's okay. That's okay because I love the unknown. I love the uncertainty is where the magic is created. It's where you plant the seeds and it's how you determine the future nows, the present uncertainty. You do what you need to do. You be who you need to be. You create, you love, you live the full human experience. And every moment of your obedience, every second you choose to self-sabotage, any time you're choosing to veer off the path, I mean, you choose the darkness, you're still a being of light. But we inch one step closer to the death of collective spirit with those choices. But I will say, there will be a rebirth. It's inevitable. So the death of collective spirit, we're really just talking, I guess, a numbers game or individual lives. The Great Awakening is here. It's not going to be televised. It's not going to be within your systems of normalcy that you perceive and how you expect it to be. You can't place your story trying to be certain in a time of uncertainty. You just have to drop it all. You have to drop the conditions and you have to understand hope and faith and the knowing that exists beyond rationality of what we're moving into. You feel it. Fuck, I feel it. I'm living in it. This is a higher dimension. This is the shift. What do you think the Mayan calendar represented? What do you think these end of time stories represented? It's the death of our old way of consciousness. And you can resist and succumb to third dimensional low vibe artificial reality, or you can step the fuck into it and just let it flow. Fifth dimension, baby. Talk about it. You can step into it. And that's what I'm doing. And I'll meet you there. Fuck, we're already here in this present moment. Step into it. Feel it. Be who you're meant to be. And understand you're infinite and eternal. And regardless of whatever happens, it happens because it did. The seeds have been planted. The new earth will prosper. It just may take a little bit of time. And that's okay. You may come back another lifetime after this one. Who knows what your soul will decide upon the end? Death is not something to fear, because with it always comes rebirth into something greater, a transformation, pure transformation, pure spirit. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling good. I don't even know if optimistic is the right word. Just ready. Full systems go right now. We don't have time to waste. Be your fucking self and don't hold yourself back anymore, because the world needs you. The world needs your gifts. The world needs your talents. You can do it. You can do it. I'll say, reach out to me on social media at Evan McDermott on Instagram. Tell me what your gift is. Let me know. Shoot me a message and tell me what the fuck you're gonna do to step into this new earth and plant these seeds, because I want to hear it. I want to know, and I want to build this fucking new planet, new earth, one podcast, one connection, one moment at a time. And I'm going to be present for all of it. I hope you will be too. It's going to wrap up this episode. If you're a fan, be sure to subscribe. Do whatever you're going to do. Check out the Trifecta Life podcast, which is now available. Put up an episode for it the other day, so you can listen on this platform. You can go subscribe there, whatever it is you want to do. And head on over to evanmcdermott.org. You can work with me, masculinity coaching, break the matrix programming, going past our human conditions. Also do channeling and tarot readings, really holding space however you may need it. So head on over there. Got a little bit of extra time on my hands, so I can accommodate quite a few people in the coaching regard. It's going to wrap up this episode. I love y'all. Many blessings. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully this will stay up on YouTube. But if it don't, you'll find it somewhere else. And just stay subscribed. And, you'll never truly lose touch with my spirit. It's infinite and eternal anyways. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And I'll see you next time. So long.